What is gross domestic product? Got a short video to explain this concept, hopefully help you understand it a little better, both what it is, what GDP is, and some of the nuances involved with gross domestic product and measuring it. So gross domestic product, it is the market value, the monetary value of all final goods and services produced in legal markets within a specific area, usually a country, in a particular set of time, usually a year. So it's trying to measure everything that's produced. The definition, though, has some interesting components to it. One, the focus on legal markets. So GDP counts what goes through a legal market. If somebody is selling marijuana illegally, that does not count towards a country's gross domestic product. But if for some reason it's legal, then it does count towards gross domestic product, assuming that the marijuana was indeed produced within a particular country. So that's one fascinating point, the legal versus not legal. And there are economists who attempt to measure how much market activity is not being captured by GDP because it's going on within illegal markets. Second, we're talking about market value of activity. These are activities specifically going through a market, which means housework is not included. So if you are spending time to do home improvements, or if you're even spending time just cleaning your house, doing dishes, that doesn't count towards GDP. What would count is if you hired somebody to do the exact same job, because all of a sudden that's a service that's being conducted. And if you're paying somebody to do that same job, that would indeed count. So that's pretty interesting. The third part, right, that's about the measurement here, we're measuring the value of the final goods and services within gross domestic product. We're not looking at the intermediate. So there's a couple ways you could count it, or you could work to add this together. If you're selling a car, final product, the value of that sale of the car would count. You would not also then count the production of the tires separately, or the production of the steering wheel separately, because that's contained within the car that was just sold to the consumer. Pretty important point when you're thinking about how to add up GDP. So two issues on gross domestic product and how well does it measure a country's standard of living. Want to mention two things here. One, GDP is about what's produced in a market economy. It does not value leisure time. So if you have a country that takes more leisure time and works less, their GDP will show up as being less. They're producing less. When we're talking about well-being in a country, often, right, GDP is a pretty good proxy, but one country is taking more time off than the other country, and that's simply not captured. And that's one criticism that you'll see around GDP. Another criticism, and I've actually talked about this in a previous video, which I will put a link to in the description, when measuring gross domestic product, the standard equation that you just teach in principles of economics classes is that it equals consumption spending plus government spending plus investment plus net exports. That, of course, means that spending by the government by $1 or $10 or $1 billion counts exactly the same as spending by consumers for those equivalent amounts. And that's really bad in terms of thinking about well-being, because we know consumers are going to spend their money to maximize their happiness, whereas governments aren't beholden to that same constraint. When a consumer goes to a store, they're going to buy whatever makes them happiest. Governments, you have officials doing their best, most of the time, doing their best to try to figure out how money should be spent. You're gonna have some bureaucratic inefficiency decreasing the effectiveness, and then they're just naturally not going to be right all the time, because that's an impossible task to accurately guess what would really make people best off if you're spending other people's money. So that's the second criticism about GDP that I think is worth noting. And there's certainly a little bit more. This isn't designed to be an end-all and be-all discussion of gross domestic product, but a short glimpse into what it is and some nuances within GDP. Hope you enjoyed this video. My name is Matt Rosu. I am a professor of economics at Susquehanna University. I'm also dean of the business school. And I enjoy making content like this, so please like and subscribe if you'd like to receive updates. And I look forward to seeing you in the next video.